Hi everybody, thank you for joining me. You're at home with Melissa, where I'm really glad that you decided to join us today because I want to talk to you about this little grow bed, this little raised bed behind me. It looks like it's not much of anything because it's really tiny. It's probably only about, in the growing area, I'd say about a meter, a little bit bigger than a meter or a yard on each side in the area where you grow things, but there's a lot to be said for this particular raised bed, and it really got me to thinking about a lot of different things that I want to talk to you guys about. So hold tight, this is going to be an information-packed video. First of all, of course, is right in the middle, that plant that you can see because it's the only thing that's grown up so far. That is a goji bush. I'm very excited that it's there. Goji berries, which grow, of course, on the goji, they are often reported as being the most nutritious of all berries. So whether that's accurate or not, you do know that they are very nutritious and they taste really good. Mildly sweet, no tartness, just really pleasant, really clean taste. So I love them, and I decided I was going to grow some, assuming that they had to be grown in a warm climate. Why I assumed that, I don't know. I started growing a couple of the bushes in my house. Then I saw an episode from a docu-series filmed in England, and the presenter, if I remember correctly, found gojis growing wild along this one coastline there in England where he happened to be. And I thought, wow, you know, they might be a little bit warmer than we are here in Zone 5 in the United States, but that doesn't, there's certainly not really a warm climate. And so I thought, well, let me look it up, and I did, and goji are, even before things get warmer with climate change, gojis are something that can grow and be hardy here in Zone 5. So I went and I planted this little one, planning to start planting more and more of them and have a lot of them. Haven't got that far yet, but I do have this little guy, and he was much larger actually, but last year at the end of the grow season, somebody, thinking they were doing me a favor, cut down everything in my raised beds to ground level, cutting down the goji as well. And look at that, we have a lot of regrowth coming from the roots, which is really wonderful, and I'm thrilled to death. Couldn't be happier. So the goji is the star of this little bed here. But there are other things to be said for it too. First of all, and I'm not going to go into just the reasons that people have raised beds. I think we've addressed that before, if not just in the episode in which I showed you how I make this particular kind of raised bed. You know, we've probably talked about it even more than that. Now, another thing that I do want to talk about is, you'll notice this little cheap PVC framework that I set up around the edges of the bed and going upward. Now, there are multiple reasons I did this. This one's kind of a short one. It's not all that tall. I can add height to it if I need later, but a frame around the edges of your grow bed or your raised beds, or even just where your planting area is in, say, your yard or on your property, if you don't elevate, if you don't do raised beds, can be really helpful in a number of ways. First of all, in this one, I put chicken wire along the back. I think of this as the back because the sun, when it's high in the sky, it passes along that way. So it's shining this direction. I have this here so that I can actually grow peas. And I've planted cow peas here, which they're a larger pea. And I've planted them here. They're going to grow up this chicken wire, which I've hung, and it only took a few minutes because I had the frame here. So, you know, in that way it comes in handy, but they'll grow up this and be this massive tangle probably. And I might need to like kind of tie them here and there to the wire to keep them there until they really hook on. Sorry, itchy face. But what will happen, since the sun's there, is the shadow that they throw will be back this way, and I'll have all of this here that still gets the full sun, okay? So, you know, with the framework, you can put strings or fencing or what have you to grow things up. You can also use them as a framework for fencing to keep animals out. In addition to which, like I said, this little guy here, the goji, is the star of this bed. Well, when those berries start to produce, which probably won't even be this year now, but when they do start to come, when it does start to produce berries, I'm going to want to get some of them. I love goji. And generally, I don't get very many of my berries because I share with the wild birds. And they're smart. Oh, they're so smart. Someone who feeds the birds all the time, the birds get to know, and they check out that place all the time. That's where they look first for their food. Well, they know that I have a lot of food growing here all through the growing season. So throughout the growing season, the birds come here to get fed. And you could probably hear some right now. They hang out here a lot, and I don't usually mind, but with the goji, I want them. So I might put bird netting on here, in addition to which you can say, if you have a colder climate like we do here, you can put, say, clear plastic over it early in the season and start planting things that without that little created greenhouse you wouldn't be able to plant yet. So you can get a little bit of an extension. I was playing in the dirt and got weird stuff on me. And you can get a little bit of an extension to the growing period in that way. You can also, if you have planted earlier in the season, for example, Old Farmer's Almanac predicts that May 21st is our final frost for the season here. However, we went straight from having the cooler temperatures and the snow and things like that to this really short period of flux, and now right at this moment it's 77 degrees Fahrenheit, or about, I think, 25 degrees Celsius here, and it's not the hottest part of the day yet. So yeah, that's might not sound all that hot to a lot of you, but I wetted my shirt down before coming down here, out here to talk to you guys, because I couldn't stand the heat. I haven't had the adjustment time yet to go from that cooler to this. So this feels really hot to me, but it's supposed to last too. So I think we actually are into the growing season now. I think it's officially begun. I think we can make that proclamation. That's not to say that we won't have any frosts or freezes. You know, it's predicted to be May 21st according to Old Farmer's Almanac, but I don't know. We might not get it, but that's not a guarantee. We might. So, if there was an alarm on there, I don't know if you could see it or not. I need to check that. But I hate when that happens, or when someone calls when I'm in the middle of filming and a thing comes up, because I'm using my cell phone. Actually, my smartphone films better than anything else I have, so I use it usually. But if you plant and then we get, you know, I've planted things, if we get an unexpected frost or something, please ignore my neighbor's dog. He barks a lot. If we get an unexpected frost, when it's predicted, I can come out here and throw a sheet over this, or some plastic or something, to keep the frost from hitting my little plants and hurting them. So that's another way in which the frame comes in handy, as well as the heat of the summer sun. There might be plants that you have growing in a raised bed or in an area in your garden that don't really like the intensity of the sun, and say don't have any escape from it. Well, if you've got a framework over it, you can just throw a little bit of something there to kind of cut down that intensity, a little shade, give it a little shade to protect it a little bit from that. So that's another good thing that can be done with a frame. And so there really are a lot of good reasons to have framework around your different beds. And you know, I'm just glad that I thought to just throw this together. Actually, you don't need to go out all the time necessarily and buy everything for a project you're doing. For this, for example, I did buy one piece of this PVC here, and it was a 10-foot piece, only cost me a few bucks. But these, the 4 vertical supports, are actually made of steel, and what they are, what they're from, is the framework from the wading pools that the ducks had in their room. Since we're starting the work on creating something else for them, the pools themselves had to be taken down. And since I was taking them down, I thought, oh, what the heck? And I used the little connectors and the steel supports from those pools to make most of the framework for this. So it was right on hand already. I just used the lengths that they were. If I need more height later, I'll either take these off and add, you know, the little connectors, or I'll just add more posts that are higher. I can do anything I want that way. You know, it works out nice. But there are more things yet. That is not all that I want to talk to you about that comes from this little tiny bed. Also, I'd like to talk to you again about biodiversity. I know I talk about it a lot, but this is kind of a biodiversity that's a little different than the way I usually talk about it. Because in an individual grow bed, you're planting your plants, and you can, I keep saying grow bed because a raised bed is a grow bed, but I prefer to say raised bed, but I just haven't been. But, okay, so you're planting these up, and you can plant your vegetables one kind in a block here or a row, and that's, you know, as well the same thing if you're planting in the ground, you know. Or what you can do is you can spread, say in this bed for example, all around the goji I have planted a cultivar of carrot known as short and sweet, little carrots, short and sweet, and Bloomsdale spinach and heirloom variety. I've planted those, I've interspersed them. So it's not a grouping of the one and then a grouping of the other. It's both. You just kind of randomly placed in there. And that can be helpful. And an example of how it can be helpful is basically, say you have an insect that wants to eat the spinach. If you've got carrot in with it, you've got something else. You've got different kinds of plants in the same area. Maybe that thing that's looking to eat the one kind of plant won't notice it because of all the other kinds of plants there. It can maybe buy you some time or end up with you having less of it eaten by something than would otherwise happen, or, you know, it can help. It's not guaranteed that it will, and you don't have to do it that way. I don't always plant that way. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. In fact, I think it's probably less than half the time I plant like that. And another reason that I do it sometimes, for example, is maybe I'll plant some kind of plant that grows taller, and not only will it help protect your individual plants and things from various problems that they could have if you have a lot of different kinds of plants in one area, it can also make better use of your space. For example, I might plant a taller plant and then around it plant a lot of shorter plants that I can plant close together, and that'll help to kind of cut down on the amount of soil that's blown away by wind erosion and things like that. And, you know, it might also thwart certain digging animals from digging in there. You know, it can do some good things for you. So you might want to, instead of just planting, you might not, you know, whichever way works best for you. You might want to, though, in some circumstances, plant more than one kind of plant in a very small space, and not just concern yourself with the biodiversity in your entire area, but make a more biodiverse small space in a particular area as well. And there's also reason that you might not want to do that. For example, if you're pretty new to gardening, you don't want to plant a bunch of various plants together in an area if you're not going to know what they are when they come up, because, you know, then it will just be a source of frustration for you. So, you know, if you're not too sure what things look like as they're growing, definitely you're going to want to probably plant groupings of things together, and you can label them then, so that, you know, put a little label there, as opposed to, you know, this area has these two things and I don't know which is which, that kind of thing. So that's another thing that you want to think about. I also want to talk to you about crop rotation, and I'm going to make it really quick because that actually is just a related topic. And crop rotation is basically, if you want a definition for it, it's just growing something in an area, not growing the same thing in the same area year after year. You want to, if you say grow tomatoes in one spot this year, next year you'll want to grow something different there instead. And the reason, using the tomato again as an example, that you don't want to grow it there year after year is because you can build up, say, different bacteria and diseases in the soil that would attack the tomatoes. It's more likely to happen if you plant the same plant there year after year. Also, you can deplete the minerals and nutrients found in the soil in that particular area that that particular plant wants. And you might be able to plant something else there that won't feed on it as heavily, or that might even help to enrich it. An example of that, let's say you're growing corn in one area and it's just corn that you're growing, and you grow that there one year. The next year, instead of growing corn, you might want to grow beans. The corn will really suck up the nitrogen and deplete that in your soil. Beans helps what they call fix the nitrogen, which means basically replenishing it. It helps so that the next time you grow something there, the nitrogen's been replaced by those beans. And you know, you can do things like that. Now, something you might notice if you have a period of winter dormancy or anything in your area and you have raised beds, if you haven't done this for a long time, it might surprise you because you stop working for the season when winter's about to come, and you have your soil filled to the top or filled to the level at which you want it in that bed. You come out in the spring and the soil is really low compared to that. And, you know, don't freak out when you see that. You know, don't think, oh gosh, what happened to my soil? Where'd it go? That's normal. You're going to have that probably every year, because what happens is, first of all, you're not compacting that soil all that much when you're using it in a raised bed. And that's one of the benefits of having the raised beds. That soil remains nice and fluffy. You're not walking on it and things like that. It does undergo some compaction, however, because of just gravity and because of water hitting it. And you know, as the fluffiness in the air goes out of it, you know, it packs down a little bit. Also, different organic material within the soil continues to break down, and so you have less volume of soil, and that level will drop. And that's actually kind of a good thing, because you're probably going to want to raise that soil level the following year anyway, because you're going to want to add soil that has more nutrients in it. You're going to want to add compost, mix that in, and things like that. And the reason for that is, as you've grown there in the one season, you've used up a lot of the nutrients that were in the soil with the plants that you grew there. And you'll probably want to add more nutrients in through those things the following year. And if the soil level didn't drop from year to year, well, then you'd have to remove some in order to add fresh. So it saves you a hassle. It's not a bad thing. And I think those are all the things that I really wanted to talk to you about, that this little bed, this tiny little bed, made me think of. Maybe it's because of the goji. The goji's a king. So maybe that's why so many things came out of this tiny little bed. But I did want to tell you about those things, and I hope that you found something helpful in there, something useful or some idea. And if there's something that maybe is related to that we didn't really talk about in this episode, and you might want to go into our comment section and add the information, you know, because it can be helpful to other people. It can be helpful to me. You know, we really do welcome it here on this channel. So if you've got something related that you'd like to add, please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. Likewise, if you have any stories that relate to this from your own life that you'd like to share with us, also the comment section is a great place for that. Or if you have any questions, anything we've brought up but haven't really gone into as much as you'd like, or something related to this, you know, you can also leave a comment in the comment section. I read all of them, and sometimes I don't get to get back to you as quickly as I'd like, but I do read every single comment and I respond as quickly as I can. And if I don't have the answers right handy, I will do the research and try to find it for you and for me, to satisfy my curiosity or to help me as well. So, okay, that's it for right now. And I hope that whatever you're doing, it's that you've got some fun going on over in your corner of the world too. So we'll be back here again soon. Again, that's the At Home with Melissa channel. And you know, I'm glad that you were here today, and I thank you for spending your time with us, and hope that you decide to do so again. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.